In the paranoid early days of the Cold War, a terrifying idea gripped America's intelligence community. What if the Soviets had discovered a way to control human minds? This wasn't just science fiction. It was the CIA's worst nightmare. In 1953, amid growing fears about communist brainwashing techniques, the agency launched what would become one of history's most notorious secret programs, Project MKULTRA. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist with the soul of a spy and the clearance to match, was appointed to lead this unprecedented quest. His mission was troublingly simple: find a substance that could shatter a person's will and rebuild it to CIA specifications. Under Gottlieb's direction, MKUltra became what investigative journalist Stephen Kinzer calls the most extensive search in history for mind control techniques. The project's scale was staggering. Operating under extreme secrecy, MKUltra experiments ran at over 30 universities, research institutions, hospitals, and prisons spanning multiple countries. The budget? An estimated $10 million, equivalent to about $87.5 million today, all channeled into exploring chemical, biological, and radiological methods of controlling human behavior. But what were they searching for exactly? The CIA believed mind control required a two-step process. First, obliterate the existing consciousness, then implant a new one. As Kinzer explains, Gottlieb wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized it was a two-part process. First, you had to blast away the existing mind. Second, you had to find a way to insert a new mind into that resulting void. The LSD acquisition and America's first trip. In their search for consciousness-altering substances, CIA researchers discovered a compound that would change America forever: lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. What happened next sounds like fiction, but the documents don't lie. In one of history's most consequential drug deals, Sidney Gottlieb orchestrated the CIA's purchase of the entire world's supply of LSD in the early 1950s, paying Swiss pharmaceutical company Sandoz Laboratories $240,000, about $4.2 million in today's money. Imagine controlling an entire class of consciousness-altering chemicals. What would you do with that power? Gottlieb's plan was methodical. The CIA distributed its LSD stockpile to hospitals, clinics, prisons, and research facilities across America, funding studies through fake foundations to conceal the agency's involvement. The recipients were instructed to test the drug and report back on its mind control potential. Meanwhile, in-house CIA experiments moved from laboratory settings to the real world as agents began dosing each other and eventually unsuspecting citizens to observe reactions in normal situations. Unwitting guinea pigs, the human cost of MKUltra. The test subjects of MKULTRA represented a grim spectrum of American society. Many were people the CIA considered expendable, or, as one agency officer chillingly put it, people who could not fight back. They included mental patients subjected to LSD for up to 174 consecutive days, prisoners offered incentives to participate in medical studies, drug addicts bribed with their drug of choice, military personnel threatened with court-martial if they revealed the experiments, sex workers and their clients, ordinary citizens simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Among these unwitting subjects was James Whitey Bulger, the notorious Boston crime boss who would later become one of America's most wanted fugitives. While serving time in Atlanta, Bulger volunteered for what he was told was a study aimed at curing schizophrenia. For more than a year, he received daily doses of LSD without knowing what it was. Years later, Bulger described the horrifying experience. "I was in prison for committing a crime, but they committed a greater crime on me." He recounted feeling like he was losing his mind, trapped in a nightmare where everyone's face in the room looked like they were wearing Halloween masks. What does it say about a government when it subjects its own citizens, even criminals, to psychological torture without their consent? Operation Midnight Climax: sex, drugs, and espionage. If MKUltra sounds disturbing, its sub-project, codenamed Operation Midnight Climax, reaches new levels of government overreach. Beginning in 1954, the CIA established a network of safe houses in San Francisco, New York, and Mill Valley, California, that functioned as covert research facilities disguised as brothels. The operation's premise was as brazen as it was unethical. CIA operatives hired sex workers who would lure clients to the agency's specially equipped brothels. Once there, the unsuspecting men would be secretly dosed with LSD in their drinks by CIA agents. The entire encounter would be recorded via one-way mirrors, with researchers taking notes from behind the glass. George Hunter White, a Federal Bureau of Narcotics agent who supervised the San Francisco operations under the pseudonym Morgan Hall, later summarized his work in a chilling letter to Sidney Gottlieb. "I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" The operation continued for over a decade before being scaled back in 1963 and finally shut down in 1966, following an internal CIA inspector's report strongly recommending closure. The Great Backfire: How Mind Control Created a Movement. By the mid-1960s, the CIA's tightly controlled monopoly on LSD had spectacularly backfired. The substance they hoped would help them control minds had escaped the laboratory and was now fueling a youth movement actively rebelling against everything the CIA stood for. America was experiencing a profound cultural shift. Young people were using LSD not to have their minds controlled, but to break free from what they saw as the mind control of conventional society. As Stephen Kinzer notes, this creates perhaps the greatest irony of the Cold War. The CIA's enormous search for mind control created the counterculture. The CIA heard that the Soviets and the Chinese might have developed mind control. What is mind control? It's the control of how we think and what we think. The cover-up and revelations. As the 1960s counterculture bloomed, MKULTRA was already being phased out. Gottlieb, ultimately concluding that mind control was unattainable, ordered the program terminated on July 10, 1972. The project might have remained buried in classified files forever if not for what happened next. In 1973, as the Watergate scandal engulfed Washington, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MKULTRA files destroyed. This wasn't just routine classification. It was a systematic attempt to erase one of the agency's most controversial programs from history. But bureaucracies, even secret ones, make mistakes. In 1977, a cache of approximately 20,000 documents related to MKULTRA was discovered, having been incorrectly stored in a financial records building. These surviving files triggered a cascade of revelations that would forever change public perception of the CIA. Congressional investigations, including the Church Committee hearings, brought the dark details of MKULTRA into the light. Senator Ted Kennedy summarized the findings on the Senate floor. The deputy director of the CIA revealed that over 30 universities and institutions were involved in an extensive testing and experimentation program, which included covert drug tests on unwitting citizens at all social levels, high and low, Native Americans and foreign. The full human toll of these experiments may never be known, as a 1977 joint report by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Committee on Human Resources concluded, given the CIA's purposeful destruction of most records, its failure to follow informed consent protocols with thousands of participants, the uncontrolled nature of the experiments, and the lack of follow-up data, the full impact of MKUltra experiments, including deaths, may never be known. So, did the CIA really control the 1960s with LSD? The evidence suggests a paradoxical answer. They tried to, but achieved the opposite of their intentions. The CIA didn't control the 60s through LSD. Rather, their experiments with the substance helped create cultural forces they couldn't control. Their quest for mind control inadvertently sparked a movement dedicated to mind liberation. Perhaps the final irony is this. In their quest to develop tools for manipulating others, the CIA itself became manipulated by the very substance they hoped would be their secret weapon. LSD didn't give them control over minds, but it did change the mind of a nation, just not in the way they had planned. What are your thoughts on this? Drop down in the comments and subscribe for more.